It's my pleasure to introduce Lee Slaney, who will be introducing our keynote speaker tonight. Lee is an enrolled member. Yeah, there we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm moving this along. Lee is an enrolled member of the Nez Perce tribe and is the representative from the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians to the Northwest Coalition for Human Dignity. Lee has extensive history in electoral and social justice organizing, and we're pleased to have her introducing our keynote speaker. Lee.
Tatskalawat. In the interest of time and to get to what I'm sure will be a very inspiring keynote address, I'll keep my remarks brief. It's an honor to introduce our keynote presenter, Ada Deer. And as I was going through the list of her many accomplishments, one statement continued to jump out at me. Ada Deer is a woman of formidable firsts. She was the first member of her tribe, the Menominee Tribe of Indians of Wisconsin, to graduate from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. She was the first American Indian to receive a master's degree from the School of Social Work at Columbia University in New York. And this is something that I find incredibly powerful. She was the first woman chair of the Menominee Tribe and supervised the implementation of the Menominee Restoration Act, which gave sovereignty back to her tribe. She has been a leader in the National Association of Social Workers. She's been a leader in the National Association of Social Workers in developing caucuses for diversity within the Native American Rights Fund and protecting rights of tribes and individuals. In her present position as senior lecturer in social work and American Indian Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, she has been tireless in her work to enhance educational opportunities for minority students and help the University of Wisconsin in establishing a multicultural center designed to foster cultural awareness and understanding among students and faculty and to provide educational information to the entire university. Also, and this is very key, she was the first woman Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, and in that position, she devoted herself to advocacy for the sovereignty of Indian tribes and developed policy to gain congressional respect for the rights of Indian people. I'd like to introduce Ada Deer.
Thank you very much, Leah, for that wonderful introduction. Now, the hour is late, but I know you are strong. And I'm a senior lecturer. I enjoy talking, and you'll soon find out what I mean by that. I was telling my table mates who are artists that in my next life I'd like to be an artist, because at the end of the day, the artist has created beauty. You can actually see it or touch it. At the end of the day, with my talking, it's difficult to ascertain what has been accomplished. On the other hand, words are extremely important, as we all know, and we all have beautiful minds and memories, and so let me say it's a real honor to have this opportunity to talk with you. Wherever two or more gather together, that's where I may be. Organizing for Justice in the New Millennium. What a wonderful title What a wonderful goal. What a wonderful vision. And I commend and congratulate all who have participated in developing, sponsoring, supporting, implementing, financing this conference. I was telling several people earlier, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I was informed the choir needs to be tuned up. I'm not so sure about that as I look at all of you, young, middle-aged, senior, men, women, people of all colors and cultures. I don't have any magic answers for these difficult problems, but I will share some of my experiences and some of my suggestions. I was particularly impressed with the words of Mr. Stone, who talked about embracing the whole agenda for human rights or of human rights. We must have basic equality across the world. We've talked about the international components, people from Europe that are here, and people who will be touched from the international arena and in the international arena. So that's the framework, the planet, right? And right here in Montana, these waves are going out across the world. The new Coalition for Human Dignity. What a beautiful, beautiful phrase. Again, the imagery and the vibes that this portrays. And as I look across here, I see the awardees for this evening. Ernie Stensgar, chair of his tribe. The police chief. Earlier, we had Mr. Sam Penny, chair of his tribe. We have Roberta Blackgoat. Is she still here? There she is, 85-year-old Navajo elder, fighting for dignity. Many people from all walks here together tonight. And let me say, this has been such a wonderful experience for me to come. A couple days early, I spent time over at the university. I always have many pages on my agenda. And so I went over there, met with the staff and faculty members, some of them, of the Native American Studies Department. And I have to tell Dr. Kate Shanley here that I had already met her sister, who's also a doctor, medical doctor, who has exerted her leadership, Dr. Lois Steele, in establishing a program for American Indian students called INMED, Indians into Medicine. I won't go into that, but let me say, she will be exerting her influence there. And I think, 300 American Indians at the university, right? 384. And it's wonderful to see and to hear of that many. And I might be successful in convincing a few to come to the UW-Madison for their graduate work. We have to continue on this diversity trail, okay? Now let me say that I've been to Montana before, and I have visited a number of the beautiful places here. I have been to Glacier. I have been to Yellowstone. I visited the Blackfeet, the Flathead, the Crow, the Northern Cheyenne. And one image that is prevalent about Montana is the cowboy and Indian image. But let me say that the vibes that I feel here, the wonderful array of organizations, the actions that you have taken portray an entirely different image of Montana, a human image. Now, in contrast, I want to mention my visit to the Bighorn National Monument. I thought back earlier, too. When I think of Montana, I have a number of wonderful images that come to mind. Senator Mike Mansfield. His statement on the death of President Kennedy was absolutely eloquent. The first woman to run for Congress came from Montana. And being a political animal, I am, of course, very, very aware of leadership of that sort. And then, of course, the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And let me say that I had a different experience going there. The current, one of the current senators in Washington is Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell, the only American Indian in the Congress at this point. And he decided at one point that if he ever had the opportunity, he would make a change. He visited the cemetery at one of their celebrations and noticed that the Indian cars were put in one section, the non-Indian cars were put in another section, and he decided to investigate this and soon found out that the Indian cars were being examined. And he didn't understand this and he didn't like it. And so he vowed to himself that one day, if he had the opportunity, he would change it. And at that point, he didn't realize that he would be a U.S. Senator. At any rate, he teamed up with your wonderful former representative, Pat Williams. And I heard Pat Williams speak in Washington along with the senator on the occasion of one of the meetings regarding the change of name. And you can all be proud of the leadership that Pat Williams exerted there on behalf of all the people, but his special sensitivity and care for the Native people. So Senator Campbell did exert his influence, and with the cooperation of good people like Congressman Williams, did succeed in changing this from the Custer battlefield to the National Monument. So he invited me to come, so I went, and it was really fun because, first of all, I was impressed that there were a number of Indian people there as staff people. And one of the most impressive staff persons from my point of view was the Smoky Bear Indian superintendent. He was a tall man. I'm sorry I don't remember his name at the moment. He was a tall Plains Indian man, braids, and his Smoky Bear hat. This was not universally acclaimed, but he has upheld the dignity of the National Park Service and the dignity of the Native people. And there were a lot of tourists around that particular day, and they were all wondering what was going on. I had my camera. I thought this was great. You know, the Smoky Bear Indian Park Superintendent and the U.S. Senator. And we were all changing cameras, and pretty soon the tourists were asking, well, what was going on? And they started taking pictures. Of course, they didn't know quite who we were, but soon they found out. At any rate, it was another demonstration of cooperation and leadership to make the change of that monument from the former name to the current name. Now, to add some insult to injury, a number of years ago, my nephew was a cadet at West Point, and we decided to visit the grave of General George Armstrong Custer. So I had one nephew in his full cadet uniform, and my other nephew, his brother, in regular clothes, and we took a picture there. Now, I think Mr. Custer may have been twirling somewhat. So, if you think back, there are many images that all of us have of our country and our locales and our homes. My first contact with the human rights effort in this area was at the invitation of a group in Coeur d'Alene, and my good friend Jeannie Givens was involved in that. I'm not sure if that was before the task force or after the task force, or it was the task force. Oh, okay. I get off the plane. There are wonderful people. There's this huge, well, it looked to me like a huge group of people, and I was happily escorted to this wonderful limousine driven by Marshall Men, who then proceeded to give me the nice Chamber of Commerce talk about Coeur d'Alene, and I had a wonderful introduction to Coeur d'Alene as a city at that time, and I participated in their forum and so on. Now, as I look across the audience here, I see Jeannie Givens and Ray Givens. I've become very good friends with them and their children. I see Ernie Stengar and his friends and family, and he's been already acclaimed this evening. And again, I want to thank you for your strong leadership, for helping not only all Indian people, but all people here in Montana walk in a prouder path because of your leadership. Sam Penny, a new younger leader who is exerting his influence under very difficult circumstances over there in his area. And Bill Wasmuth. I asked Bill how I got here, and he said that he was responsible this time. So if you have any complaints, he's the man. There are some people that are not here that I have met and been deeply moved by. One is Mr. Henry Saijan, a member of the Coeur d'Alene tribe. And he gave me a beautiful medallion that I treasure and wear on special occasions. Mickey Pablo, I of course met him and had occasion to have meetings with him in Washington. Another strong leader who shows all what wonderful leadership it is. Now, as I talked with various people, I went to workshops. I always come well prepared. Don't worry, I'm aware of the time, but I thought to myself, now, what can I tell people, and how can I inform and assist in this effort? You've all had a lot of statistics and theories and discussions, and so I thought I would work to bring this down to a more personal level. And as I tell parts of my story, I want you to think about you in yours. My mother, Constance Stockton Wood Deer, came from Philadelphia, from a Quaker family. My father, a Menominee Indian, spoke the language very well, and he had been shaped by his life there on the Menominee Reservation in Wisconsin, and had attended the boarding school and been damaged there. My mother at first worked as a nurse on Rosebud, and the first Indians that I heard about were the Sioux. It was only later on that I realized that I was an Indian. Of course, my mother informed me about this, and she said, Ada dear, you're an Indian. Your obligation is to help your people. And of course, after that, I have enlarged my perspective to the world. And she said, you're here on this planet to help people, not to have fun and goof off. Now, I am 64 years old, and I'm still doing what my mother told me. So I, of course, have developed my own style along the way, and she trained me up to think and to do and to be. When I was a young child, I used to ask her, well, Mom, should I do this? And she'd say, what are you asking me for? You have a brain, use it. So I tell you, all of us to keep this in mind. We all have brains, and we have to use them. And so my mother's early shaping of me has resulted in the basic foundation of my activism. So one time when I was about 14, I looked her straight in the eye and I said, Mom, I'm all your fault. So again, I remind you, as in your role as parents, as citizens, as teachers, professors, that we all have impacts on people every day. I'm the oldest of 5 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. I tell everyone I was born an adult. I had to learn to take a vacation when I was about 30 because I've been on fast forward most of my life. Luckily, I had the physical energy and good health to carry out my mother's agenda, which has now become my agenda. And so I tell all of us to take care of ourselves, to treasure your good health, and to keep in mind that it's important, mentally, physically, religiously, socially, to try to live a balanced life and keep working on your agenda. Now, I've had a number of experiences in my young years, and I share these with you because you can also transmit some of these experiences to your young people. I attended an American Friends Service Committee International Student Seminar when I was a college student, and I learned about the Quakers. I attended the Encampment for Citizenship, which was sponsored by the Ethical Culture Society in New York. And I had 2 extremely important experiences then. And I'm telling you this because I had the opportunity here to meet with some young people, but this was only for a short time. We need to bring together young people and transmit the vision, the skills, and help them develop the leadership to carry on this work. At that point, this was a 6 weeks program in New York. We studied certain topics. I decided to study integration. This was in 1956, 2 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education. And one of the persons that came to speak was Dr. Kenneth Clark. He was a psychologist who helped in the development of the lawsuit. And his experiments with black school children with the dolls, the black dolls and the white dolls. He explained this a lot more, and I'm just summarizing this, where the young children who were black selected the white dolls over the black dolls. And that was used in the Supreme Court case. And I remember thinking, someday, I hope that I can do something of equal importance involving my people and to assist my people. We also then, getting back to human rights now, were invited up to meet with Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt at Hyde Park. She was contacted by the people sponsoring encampment, and she agreed to do this. And so we spent 2 hours there, and it was wonderful. There was an earlier mention today by one of the speakers about her involvement with the Human Rights Commission. And as you can see, I like to talk, and I want to urge all of you to urge your people to talk because we can't keep silent. We were very awed being there. She was a warm, fabulous human being. She asked if any of us had questions. And I looked around, being respectful. Nobody did, so I raised my hand. And I said, yes, I would like to ask about South Africa. It is very terrible what is going on there. The government is oppressing their own people. And why is the UN still allowing them to stay in? Why can't the UN do more, like kick them out? Now, I'm only a college kid at that point, and I didn't understand a lot about a lot of things. And so she says, well, that's a good question. Now, you have to understand, change takes a long time. Violence is not the answer. I still remember her words, and education is the way. And now we know that her words were correct. There has been a great change there. And I was very touched by the fact that she would take several hours out of her busy day and invest her time and energy in us. So I'm telling you that you ought to think about a human rights effort for young people. As a college student up on the reservation, I was contacted by a member of the then Governor's Commission on Human Rights. And she said that they are going to form a youth advisory board for the Governor's Commission on Human Rights. And did I want to join it? So I'm always curious, and my curiosity always gets me into trouble. And so I said yes. And so there were a bunch of high school kids from Wisconsin, farm kids, city kids, and one Asian, one Indian, I think one black, and a few other kids, and we got to really know each other. We formed our own a little truth squad. We went to high schools. We had our own youth conference. We did a lot of things. That was my very first indication of the word human rights. Now, the Governor's Commission on Human Rights no longer exists. The Youth Board, of course, no longer exists, but it carried on for several years afterwards. That was a long time ago. I'm 64. That was then. This is now. Okay, this is one thing that I would like to throw out as a possibility for you. Now, human rights. I could spend a lot of time on this, but I'm only going to mention this. My most important human rights effort was the restoration of the Menominee tribe. You have a whole section here on Indians, and I would also like to suggest that you consider a new format for your conference. That is, in one short day, it's really difficult to cover so many topics. And I would like to suggest that you look upon this as a longer time and have a day for everybody on one topic. Since this is Indian country, I suggest that there needs to be a lot more information for the whole conference, and I'll be happy to help you design that. All right. My tribe was terminated back in 1954. It was finalized in 1961. It was a cultural and economic political disaster. Now, I was a college kid when this happened. I knew it was very important, but I decided I better get myself through school and then I would get involved. And again, to make a long story short, there have been many books written about this, but we started a grassroots movement of our people, and we did get the tribe restored. And I'd like to make one correction in the introduction. Sovereignty is inherent. The government does not give us sovereignty. It is there. And so we achieved a very historic reversal of American Indian policy. We went from termination, which is a terrible word, and that's just meant what it's supposed to do, terminate the tribe, and from termination to restoration. No one thought we could do this. Now, this all comes at a price. Human rights are not something that descend on you. You have to work at it. Sovereignty doesn't descend on us either. We have to work at it. I was in law school at the time, and let me say, I decided it was more important to work for the tribe, and I'm a law school dropout. I like to tell the lawyers, but I still succeeded. Now, I have nothing against lawyers. I have a great respect for the law. My sister's a lawyer, some of my best friends are lawyers, but I'm a dropout. At any rate, we went from termination to restoration, a very historic precedent for this country, and other tribes were restored. Many Indian people know this, but some of you don't know this. And it was a 5-year effort out of my life, and I didn't have any money. I didn't have any salary. I lived with some friends. I had put a few dresses in the closet, and it was hard. Now, I didn't undergo the hardship that Bill did with getting his house bombed, but all the isms were alive and well. Racism, sexism, and for many years, people are always kind of patting me on the head, oh, the little Indian woman social worker, they're just kind of dismissing me. Well, of course, they don't understand that I'm a Menominee, that I'm also two many heritages, and I'm a very stubborn person. I'm also a loudmouth most of the time. So we did get the Restoration Act through, and to make another long story short, I decided that it was really important that this be implemented correctly. I have the answer then because it was my legislation. And to you young people out there, it's really important to get a good education. One word is important. Lawyers argue over words, commas, dots. And I argued with the lawyers about this. And of course, I won. So it's really important to get the best education you can get, because none of us know what kind of life we're going to have and what challenges are going to be there. And I'll give you one example. When I'm talking about isms, everybody has an answer to the Indian problem. Now, there are 554 tribes federally recognized. And this is an example of the oversimplification of very complex issues. One lawyer was telling me that he would promote the repeal of termination. Excuse me, we're not talking about repeal. I said, English is my first language. I understand, and I know that you understand the difference between repeal and amend. You want to amend the Restoration Act, no, the Termination Act. I said, we're not amending it, we're repealing it. Okay, Ada, okay. You know, so I'm telling you, you have to know. All right, from then, I got involved in political campaigns. Let me say I lobbied for the Restoration in the early 70s, and I looked around. This was before now the National Organization for Women, before the National Women's Political Caucus, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, these people are running the country. Now, let me say that there are always good people, and there were good people that helped us, but there are too many mediocre people, and we all have to change that. There's another election coming in, so stay tuned. All right. I've run for office as Secretary of, first of all, being the first woman chair of my tribe, this wasn't something that was really easy to do. Many people thought, and both men and women stated, well, you know, our tribe has always been run by the men. So I said, well, that could be part of the problem, all right? You know, not the whole problem, part of the problem, because we had then a mixture of people that got elected to the Restoration Committee. During the 25 years then, we've had 2 other women elected as tribal chairs. So we now have a new tradition in the tribe. It doesn't always have to be, you know, one set or one sex. So I tell people, tradition can be changed, and sometimes it really needs to be. At any rate, I ran for Secretary of State a couple times. That wasn't really in my plan either. But I have an adventuresome side, and I want to tell you this because I'm pushing the envelope all the time for many people. And I was very interested in the political process. I went to the Democratic Party. I asked how we could get more Indians into the Democratic Party. The woman said, never mind that. I want you to run for public office. And I said, well, I wasn't really too interested in that. But no, she said, okay. So I said, all right, what should I run for? Secretary of State. Why? Because it's vacant at the time. So I didn't have any money, I didn't have any polls, but it sounded kind of fun, you know. So I ran around the state and I found out what the duties of the Secretary of State were, you know, keeper of the state seal, and keeper of the records, and so on and so on. And I came in, you know, 4th in the field of 9, and then they told me I couldn't just do that once, I had to do it twice, and they told me, well, I did it again. I came in 2nd in the field of 4, and I thought, okay, I've done that now. So again, but it was really interesting because they didn't expect some, you know, Indian woman to be running around the state talking about Secretary of State. So I tried to open up the eyes of people and say, yes, you know, we're here, and we can do this too. At any rate, that got me more into the political process. And again, just to touch on this, when a very wonderful liberal Congressman Robert Kastenmeier was defeated in 1990, some friends came to me and said, well, we really want you to run. Now, that wasn't quite on my list, you know, running for Congress. Running for the state was one thing, but running for Congress was something else. But then I thought to myself, a very wise man told me, and this was John Gardner, founder of Common Cause and so on, told me, well, would you regret it? And I said, well, if I didn't do it, I probably would. I said, well, then that's your answer. So I ran for Congress, and this gets to part of our point here now. I decided that I was not taking any PAC money. And this made some of the good PACs mad. Because I'm an Indian woman social worker, I won the primary, 60% to 40% over the opponent who had collected $400,000 and had been planning on this for a long time. And I did not conduct a negative campaign. The press was really angry with me. So I'm a social worker, and I care what you do, why you do it, how you do it. So they always found the ugliest picture and put it somewhere. At any rate, I didn't win the general, but then I did go on to become the assistant secretary. And some of you, I want you to think about this in terms of your own lives. I'm glad to see there's other people here that are running for office, that you have young people under you. Now, these kinds of jobs don't just fall in your lap. You have to campaign for them. And I told the FBI the only thing they're going to find out about me is speeding. The world is in slow gear, the deer's in fast gear. And so I passed the test, and I became the secretary. And that's another long story, but I won't go into that. Let me say, though, that in all of these, you have opportunities to expand the envelope for everybody and to advocate for human rights. And I felt very fulfilled in making some of the important decisions I could make there. Now, these were not easy. All the isms were alive and well when I was assistant secretary: racism, ageism, sexism, classism. And it was really hard, and that's another whole chapter. But let me say, the average tenure for a political appointee is 19 months, and I stayed 4 years. So, now, I tell you this because I want you to think about yourselves. I want you to think about your children, your circle of people, because it's our government, and we need to make changes wherever it is needed. And one of the most serious ones is the public financing of campaigns. Right now, we have the best government money can buy, and it's hurting all of us in many, many levels. And this is totally unacceptable in this wealthy country, that we have many people that are in dire need. So, if an Indian woman social worker can raise over $500,000 from individuals, I like to tell the congressmen and senators this: think what you guys could do. That challenges them. All right, now, I'm going to change the topic here a little. Here we are in the Northwest. There's been a good deal of activity on the hate crime front. For one thing, we now have explicit laws defining hate crimes and raising these acts to the federal level. And we have some numbers. The FBI reports 7,947 hate crimes in 1995 from 45 states and the District of Columbia. The numbers range from 3 in North Dakota to 845 in New York. Of these, nearly 8,000 crimes that were reported to the FBI, 61% of the incidents were motivated by racial bias, 16% by religious bias, 13% by sexual orientation bias, and 10% by ethnicity or national origin bias. The 7,947 incidents reported involved 9,895 separate incidents, 10,469 victims, and 8,433 known offenders. The vast majority of these crimes were directed against individuals. It's horrible to think about these statistics. Who is committing these crimes, and where do they come from? They're often young, working class men who joined white supremacist groups in prison. For example, in California, there's a group called the Nazi Lowriders, a vicious neo-Nazi skinhead prison and street gang. They've been responsible for a number of attacks against blacks. They are an offshoot of the Aryan Brotherhood, another notoriously violent white supremacist prison gang. The Lowriders have been spreading through California and adjoining states. Buford Furl, the suspect in the Los Angeles Jewish daycare shootings, is identified with the Aryan Nations, another neo-Nazi group, and I'm sure many of you know that up here. There are a number of other white supremacist groups, such as the Phineas Priesthood, the Aryan Republican Army, and the World Church of the Creator. You see hate crimes committed against certain ethnic groups during times of economic uncertainty. And I've thought a lot about this. Why do people hate? You have to be taught to hate, okay? You have to be taught to hate. And this, again, is another personal effort that we all have to undertake. With my little nieces and nephews, when I hear some epithet or I hear some wrong thing, I correct them. Now, their parents are not exactly happy about this because they're the parent and I'm the aunt. I said, wrong, this is wrong, and it's unacceptable, and this child needs to know this. So I risk some discomfort from my family circle at times, because you have to educate your families too. Sometimes they're not right where they should be. And it's not easy, it's not easy. So, first, the family circle. Crimes against Hispanics are an excellent example. This is the crimes against certain ethnic groups during economic uncertainty. In California and throughout the Southwest, antagonisms toward Hispanics, including those born in this country, increased during periods of economic recession. During the Great Depression, 500,000 citizens and non-citizens of Mexican descent were dumped on the Mexican border. In the early 1950s, a paramilitary operation named Operation Wetback, I mean, can you believe that? Operation Wetback, deported tens of thousands of Mexicans from California and other southwestern states. There was a terrible climate of hatred and fear in this entire area at that time. While Proposition 187 was being debated, crimes committed against Hispanics increased and continued to increase after it passed. You have to remember that California was in a very deep recession at the time. People were being thrown out of work by large and small companies alike, and they were scared. The racism shown by these acts has deep roots in this country. It has infected our political life and society for more than 300 years. I won't go into the whole history of that, although I'm tempted to. I've got some books that I'll tell you about later that you can all consult. Looking back at our history, American Indians and black people have been demonized. For one group, it was a haphazard process. For the other group, it was extremely systematic, and the results were similar. Okay? Now, there have been references made to some of the other actions here in the Northwest. And let me say that this has also happened in Wisconsin. In 1984, the Chippewas won an important fishing rights case, the Bolt case, federal judge, B-O-L-D-T, state of Washington. I think many of you may be familiar with that. And we had some of the same vicious attacks in Wisconsin. However, people there didn't sit back either. The Midwest Treaty Rights Support Group started. Honor started, and I believe that Jeff Smith is on the Board of Honor. Is Jeff Smith still here? Okay, right? You're on the Board of Honor? Right. And that's Honor Our Neighbors' Origins and Rights. Again, citizen action, and I thank you for your service there, Jeff. We have, throughout history, anti-Indian people, and I think you're all familiar with Senator Gorton. His actions when he was the Attorney General promoted dissension, I'm told, and now in the Congress. He is probably, someone said today, one of the best known persons in Indian country. He's in a very powerful position. He is the chair of the Senate Appropriations Interior Committee, and he's in charge of the BIA budget. And let me say that when the Republicans took control of Congress in '94, budgets started getting slashed, and there were severe budget reductions in the Bureau. I had to spend a lot of my time just fighting for the restoration of the already meager budget. So you get to see what the results are of people who are anti. And it's very sad. I have to tell you one story. I know it's getting late, but you're a captive audience. Now I'm not going through all these pages. But again, to illustrate, especially to your young people, why it's important to get a good education. I get invited to a lot of things, as anyone does in one of these high positions. Well, I'm a graduate of Columbia University. The Columbia University was having a luncheon to honor outgoing Senator Claiborne Pell, and I decided to go. So who do I see him with? Senator Gorton. So I go up to Senator Pell and I say, Senator Pell, it's wonderful that you're here. And he says, oh, Secretary Deere, it's really good to see you. Isn't this the third time this week? It was. I was really surprised he knew me. At any rate, some people tell me that when they meet me, it's an occasional unforgettable experience. I try not to make it that way all the time. At any rate, so I commended him and I thanked him on behalf of all the citizens of this country for his wonderful work in the Pell scholarships. You're all familiar with that, right? And he said, well, you know, I'm part Native American. And I said, yes, I'm aware of that. And isn't it wonderful that you have helped so many people? Now, Senator Gorton was, I think he was trying to avoid me. But I decided that I wasn't going to let him. And so I went up to him later on and I said, hello, Senator Gorton. And I said, Ada Deer, Assistant Secretary, Indian Affairs. Now, I know that he knows who I am, but I decided to emphasize the point anyway. And then I said, Columbia University, School of Social Work, 1961. Now, it took him a little while to integrate this. And then he says, because I'm not quite sure, maybe he thinks all Indians go to Podunk U or something. You know, I don't know. At any rate, he said, great school, isn't it? And I said, yes. He said, that's about the time, you know, I went to law school. I said, I know. And so there I was looking at him straight in the eye. We're both graduates of Columbia, and it felt good. The next time I had to testify before him, he was a little better. But he soon resumed his general tenor. At any rate, you never know when you're going to be able to use your education, and you have to stand tall and be tall. Again, young people, don't scrape through with C's. Do your absolute best and get the grades that you should get. Now, I want to mention again a few of the problems here that were mentioned in the workshops on Indians. Just a couple things. There's the North Central Idaho Jurisdictional Alliance. The racism is becoming a lot more violent and a lot more focused. This was mentioned by Mr. Penny. This is an organization consisting of 23 local governmental entities that is challenging the jurisdiction of the Nez Perce tribe. According to their website, the alliance was formed in late 1996 out of necessity to defend the members and citizens of the area from the ever-expanding claims of the Nez Perce tribe to jurisdiction. And when you think of the millions of acres that the Nez Perce tribe at once occupied, and now the small number, this doesn't make any sense. So we have a whole number of governmental entities that are fighting the Nez Perce tribe. We have, I will go, we have school districts, we have Idaho County, we have Clearwater County, Idaho County, Lewis County, cities of Quisquia, Stites, Orofino, school districts, highway districts. It's very, very sad. And then there are other groups, United Property Owners of Washington, and then all efforts devoted against the macaw whaling. Now, let me just mention a couple sentences from letters to the Seattle papers regarding the macaw whaling. I have a very real hatred for Native Americans now. It's embarrassing, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't the truth. What do you think will be my private thoughts deep inside my brain when a Native American drops off an application for a job with me? I am anxious to know where I may apply for a license to kill Indians. My forefathers helped settle the West, and it was their tradition to kill every redskin they saw. The only good Indian is a dead Indian, they believed. I also want to keep faith with my ancestors. So you see, these are letters written to the Seattle paper, and you can get this from the Coalition for Human Dignity. That brings it straight back to home as to what the dimensions are, what the depth of the feelings are, what the hatred is. Now, there are good people, and this is where you all come in. There are good people. And I'm looking at my clock here. Hang on. Hang in. This is another letter that warmed my heart. I'm able to carry on the tradition, talking about the macaws. I am very glad for the macaw tribe. They were able, despite overwhelming odds, to carry on a tradition of their ancestors denied them for too long. In our white man's society, we pride ourselves on heritage, tradition, customs, and ancestry. Who are we to say that another people who have different heritage, traditions, customs, and ancestry than ours, that you cannot practice them? We are fighting such tyranny in Albania because we think it is wrong. It is no different here. They have a God-given right to conduct their people's affairs as they see fit, not how we think they should live. Anything less is a sin. Meriwether Lewis III, great-grandnephew of Captain Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition. So, wasn't that a very positive statement? So again, the yin and the yang, the plus and the minus. Now, I don't know what's happening. I think they're turning the heat up here to make us all move on. So I want to say just a few more things about what can be done. There are endless things that can be done. The textbooks. Where do we get all this misinformation? If I were running the world, I would have to start with revising most of the textbooks. They leave out, most of the textbooks do. I think there are efforts now to change some of them. They leave out the accurate roles of American Indians and Alaska Natives, women, blacks, Hispanics, Asians. I went to China twice. I asked myself, what did I know about China? Well, Chinese laundry, Chinese food, and I vaguely remembered the Chinese helping build the Western railroads. That's all I could think about. Good thing I'm a speed reader. I read about a dozen books on the plane over, and I knew something, and it was really good that I did because I ended up sitting next to a man who had marched with Mao. This was in 1980 when I went over. And China had just opened up in 1979. So, reading, speed reading, and honing in on important cultural things. He was really impressed that I knew something, a little bit about China. So, I tell you this, that we have to reach out. We have to understand other people. We have to correct the textbooks. That's number one. You're all parents, or you have children in school. Look at those textbooks. Where are they learning? Pretty soon, it's Thanksgiving. We just got to Columbus. Christopher Columbus discovered America. Wrong. There's a whole book called Rethinking Columbus. Thanksgiving, and we learn about Thanksgiving. Most of these, there's another book, Lies My Teacher Told Me. Read that. Now, actions. I think many of the tribes feel alone at times. We need to have letters from the editor, or to the editor, from good people, such as you. You need to challenge this. And people often tell me, oh, we want you to come and do this in-service training. No, there's only one of me. There's never going to be enough people to do all the work that needs to be done, Indian people or other people. We've got to have all of us engaged in this. And the heaviest responsibility should be on the people of the dominant society, because that is where the power has been for too long, and that's where the power is to change. And again, we have good models for this, Bill Wasmus and many of you in this room. I don't want to belabor the point. There are many, many things that can be done, and you're already doing it. It needs to be replicated more. It needs to be done other places. You need to, I think, restructure some of your conference format to become even better advocates than you are. And you need to keep the faith. Well, I think we're getting to that point where it's called the diminishing returns. And so I am going to wind down. I want to give special thanks to Idaho Percy for demonstrating a special generosity and humanity for returning the land to the tribe. Maybe some of you have heard of her story. More of this needs to be done. So thank you for your wonderful compassion and generosity. Also, this is one of the few conferences that I've been at where we have such a wide array of groups. There needs to be a lot more coalition at many levels of the NAACP, the ACLU. Let me commend the ACLU. They're taking part in some lawsuits that are involved in redistricting that usually involves depriving Indians of vote, so I want to commend this. I have the button here. I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU. Yay for the ACLU. Okay. What does justice mean? In essence, it means the end of the isms. Racism, ageism, sexism, homophobia, and any other negative things. And as we all look forward now to the 21st century, we can challenge everybody. Throw off those old attitudes. Get with the new millennium. And you can, each person, do this in your own way. And if all of us, and let me look and tell you, I look across this audience, I am so touched, I am so moved. Each of you is a precious person on the planet. You are the only person that can be you. And you should remember this as you go forward in your life, that you have beauty, you have strength, you have determination, you have dedication, you have courage. Carry on with your vision.
Once again for Ada Deer. You all are, by several measures and considerable orders of magnitude, the most astonishing audience I have ever seen in my life. I have announcements here. To hell with them. We are adjourned.